Hi everybody, welcome to another Art After Dark. It's so good to see you all tonight. We are doing this really gorgeous sunset tonight. So if you're part of the class pack, either the monthly or the weekly class pack, I have, in addition to the reference photo, I have worked on some wonderful color swatches. Thank you guys for coming in tonight. So these are some wonderful color swatches. We're going to be doing a lot of pinks today and some like beautiful magentas and corals. And we're just going to be working with a little bit different color palette from what I normally work with, which tends to be a lot of blues and turquoises. And we are going to light the sky on fire tonight. So what I'm going to tell you guys about this reference photo is, once again, like all of the ones this week, this is just taken with my iPhone. I haven't even done anything. There's no filters. This is unedited, and this is right in front of my house. So this was the sunrise a couple mornings ago. It was just my daughter came and got me and was like, "Hey mom, come look at the sunrise. It's crazy." And so I walked out and it was insane. It was just the most incredible sunrise. And the clouds were just on fire. And something to remember as you're taking a picture, and this is how photographs are different from real life, you have to remember that it skews the colors. And so this sunset was much more red. The sky was much more on, like, it was much pinker and much more on fire. And the camera tends to skew it to orange. So without further ado, we're going to get started. I did want to see. I recommended burnt sienna again for this one, so we'll do that. And so if you've been doing the class pack, not only do you get the reference photo, but I have some tips and some instructions, and then this color palette that I showed you, I give recipes on how to make those colors if you're not familiar with color mixing, so that you can practice them ahead of time before we get going and be comfortable with making those colors as we go through the demonstration. So I wanted to give a big shout out to everyone that replied to my stories today and helped me figure out that the tree that I'm in love with is a bottle brush. I've seen bottle brush in small sizes before, but this is like, you would think this was a big live oak. It's just insane. And my daughter's climbed on the tree before because it's so big and it's so old, and I just wasn't paying attention, figured it was an oak of some variety or whatever, and walked by and I was like, that tree looks kind of like a mimosa tree, but I had I'd never seen it before. I don't know if I've mentioned this before, but I'm not the best plant mom. I'm really good at orchids because they require a certain level of neglect, and so I'm good with like bushes and trees, and I love flowers, but stereotypically I'm mostly better at killing flowers than cultivating them and having them flourish. So the more I'm down here in Florida and discovering all these flowering trees, I'm just like, I think it's the coolest thing ever because trees can withstand my neglect. So, and if you find the right tropical trees around here, they flourish and they're just gorgeous and beautiful. All right, so once again, if y'all happen to see, if this situation becomes covered by the comments, let me know and I'll adjust the view. All right, so one great thing about this as we're talking about composition is, first of all, when I'm working on this, I'm not going to put in the telephone lines, so just pretend like they're not there as we're drawing. And I might put in the house. I haven't decided yet, but I am going to start by blocking in all of this dark. And I might make the house a tree. I might leave the house in there. I haven't decided yet. Yeah, the bottle brush is crazy. It's over on Crescent Lake, and it's just gorgeous. It's massively huge. All right, so we're gonna start with, you can either start, let's see, I have to read my notes and figure out what I told y'all to use. All right, we're gonna do orange and chromium green oxide and Van Dyke brown. So we're gonna make a very, very dark green with, and we're gonna mix it with brown. And oh look, I accidentally traced the tree line through here. So we're gonna follow it a little bit, just make life easy. That was unintentional. And we're just gonna make this super rough, because once again, you don't have to be exact. Something I don't want you guys to, I want y'all to remember that to not be afraid of failing. You can always come back and edit, or you can start over, or you can try again. Like this is 100% about expanding and learning and making yourself better. And then I'm gonna add a little bit of ultramarine in the dark, deepest shadows to make it extra dark. And so this is all of these trees are going to be extra dark because there's a sunrise behind it. So everything is lit from behind. So it is going to be as close to black as you ever get in real life. But even remember then, like the darks are going to be nice and dark, but they shouldn't be black. There's always little hits of color. And so if you mix your blacks from other colors, they will have a richness and depth that you will never get if you use a bottle black. And it just won't look the same. It won't. When I was first painting, I really didn't understand it. I was like, oh, what's wrong with black? But it truly, like, a black out of the bottle kind of sucks all the air out of a painting, where if you make your own blacks, it reflects other colors in the painting and adds to the depth and the character of the painting, if that makes sense. All right, so let's see. So our darkest dark is these trees, which we've come in and done that. And I'm pretending that the house is not there for now. I might go back in and add it. And then our lightest light is going to be up here in the sky. So I might just do a dab of that, and that'll be some teal and white, which I've had you guys mix before, so I didn't add it to the color palette. It's going to be a very light version of that. I'm going to bring it over here so it's easier to see me mixing. And that teal, in fact, has a lot of yellow in it. It doesn't have much color in it. It's a very grayed out. So I'm going to add just the tiniest bit of yellow. And then we're going to add this. We're just going to put a hit of that here because that's kind of our lightest color. And I just want to, then that'll help me understand if this is my lightest light and this is my darkest dark, where everything fits between. So then the sky won't wind up a weird value in between. So with the way these clouds work, they're kind of an interesting combination, and the mass almost moves down as the sky, like there's a lot going on with these clouds. So I'm going to, I think I'm going to start at the top and work my way down, which is kind of the opposite of how I normally do clouds. But these clouds have so much going on. I think that will be easier than going from the bottom up, where they have a lot more color and a lot more saturation. Like if I start with the color and saturation, I'm worried I'll pull it up too far and it'll be not as brilliant. Right now the focal point is right here. And so I want to keep the focus right here and have us appreciate the sky. But if you have too much of the pink, it'll just be too much. You want contrast. Contrast makes a painting. You don't want to have everything too much the same. All right, so I am going to use, I had said use ultramarine, magenta, and Van Dyke brown. And you're going to use a little bit of white. So we're essentially going to be doing a grayed out violet for the clouds. And so up here, if you'll notice, this doesn't look that purple. It looks pretty blue, but when you get it next to a teal, then it looks much more purple. And as we get closer down, I'm going to add more magenta and orange to the clouds. So you can kind of see how this goes. And the closer that you get to the horizon with these clouds, the more pink and orange you get. And then it goes more kind of yellow. So I'm establishing a little bit of the gradient, and then I will come back in and adjust some of the color. So this is me kind of just showing you purple to the medium magenta to orange. And I'm gonna go through and work on that a little bit. I'm gonna work on it more as we go. All right, so up at the top, it's much bluer. These clouds have a lot more blue, a lot more gray. So if y'all have any questions as I'm doing this, just let me know. And I'm gonna put some lights in there. Some of that teal that I mixed up earlier is going to peek through because the clouds are not they're not a wall. You do see the sky behind them in touches, so you want to make sure that it's just peeking through very gently, very subtly. And then I made it way too teal. So I'm working on graying it back out again. And with the back sky, with the sky that's peeking out behind, just like any other time you do a sky, it will have a gradation of its own, and you have to really study and watch the sky and take a look at it to understand how it's behaving at different times of the day. So like this one, as I snapped a picture, I noticed it was the blue portions of the sky that are not covered. Basically all the colors are clouds. So the sky itself goes from like a turquoise to a much almost yellowy color down where close to the sunrise. So as you move through the sky that's peeking behind the clouds, you have to also have a gradient coming through, which makes it a little bit confusing, but if you can kind of get the knack for that, it makes it a lot easier. And like a lot of this is how do I choose the background color? Well, this one I'm painting it fairly realistic to life. So this is a very, very light teal. It's a very grayed out teal and white. And you can see the little bits of where it's peeking through. And so I'm trying to show the sky peeking through the clouds, since that's the background. And then as I keep working on the clouds, I'm going to come back over some of the sky holes that I made. So these little bits where the sky is peeking through the clouds, it's similar to a tree. When you're doing trees, they call them sky holes, because you see little bits of the sky peeking through. So that's, this one I'm doing, like I said, I'm using my reference photo as a rough start, and I'll push and pull the colors, but I'm not doing a pink sky, for example, if that makes sense. So I'm gonna come through, I'm gonna do then as we move down, the clouds are gonna get more pink, and then they're gonna get, there's like this kind of weird space where they're like this kind of this purpley pink color, but they're not yet coral. And so this is where you can kind of go through and this is where you can have your own flair. And I'm coming through and I'm adding hits of, color to accent what I want to accent. Like you can push it and you can make it more pink, you can make it more orange. I'm making the base clouds, I'm making them gray, and then where you see where the edges get hit by light from underneath, that's where you're gonna say, that's where you're gonna see like these, your eye thinks they're bright, flat, to your eye these little edges seem bright, but they're actually quite gray in real life, and it's just our perception because they're next to something even more dull, they seem more intense. So yes, Carrie, do you mean like by the brown, do you mean the background color, the burnt sienna? So the burnt sienna on the background, I use, so the background, I always tone my canvases with a color. So sometimes I use a hot pink, sometimes I use a burnt sienna, sometimes I use, I don't know, I've used blue, I've used green. I use some color. You can either do like a flat gray is a very popular thing to do. It helps me see value better and it helps me see color better. If you're just doing it on pure white, it's very difficult to judge it's very difficult to judge color on a white background. So this basically goes in, and what I do is you eliminate all the pressure that you had by, you're like, oh gosh, I have this white canvas. What do I do? I'm so afraid of the first step. You just go in and you paint in a color. And so that, that really helps a lot with like fear of failure. Is like, well, I've already got this one color, so then you just kind of start building from there. And so as you move up, the color is farther, the little hits of color as you move farther away from the horizon where the sun is, these are actually going to be duller, but because they're against a gray, they'll appear still pretty bright. No, it's a little bit brighter than I wanted. Even brighter. Once again, you mess up, don't worry about it. Just keep on rolling. Keep trying it. And then also, once again, not the color I was looking for. If you don't get the color that you're looking for, don't panic, don't worry. Just go mix another one. Try again. Alright, so I am trying to, this right here is, for lack of a better term, it's imbalanced. Like it's kind of like, why does the tree end? Why do the clouds end? It's confusing. Your eye is kind of a little like, what's going on right here? Why does it all just end? So I was going to come through, just like in the reference photo, and add some other clouds and connect it and make it make a little bit more sense to the eye. It is happening in the reference photo, but there we go. That helps a little bit. Need to make it more blue. I'm having some difficulties mixing that color because I have so much pink on my brush. Here we go. This helps break up this sky right here just a little bit, and this is where, there we go, that's a little bit better. It just helps break up this big column of sky, and you're sort of like, why is that happening? Why is this all perfect sky up here? It doesn't 100% make sense. So we're just going in and fixing some of it. If y'all have any questions, feel free to ask. And so this is, like I was saying about the reference photo itself, in real life, this was, gosh, I was blown away by how red the sunset was, how pink it was. And every time I tried to take a picture with my phone, it just kept wanting to make it orange. And so I'm going back in and I'm making it a little bit more coral and magenta, and I'm bringing some of that red back in because that was part of what really dazzled me about the sunrise is just how beautiful and pink it was. It was the last time I'd seen a sky this red was, we went to Sri Lanka and they had all the sunsets. I think there was a fair amount of dust or atmosphere in the air. And so they had, for better or worse, they had some of the most gorgeous pink sunsets. They were so beautiful. And as we get closer to the horizon, I'm adding some lighter colors in here and having it doing some like little orange bits and some yellow bits. This is really where I want my focal point to be. So I'm having this be the most interesting part. And here's something I'm gonna talk to y'all about a little bit. We're talking about sky holes where the sky is peeking through the clouds. Now we're going to talk a little bit about where the sky peeks through the trees. there are little bits of like color that come through. And so I'm going to come through and I'm going to break up this big tree shape is awkward. And so I'm going to break up some of these tree shapes with some little bits of sky holes and kind of editing this a bit because it's just a little bit awkward. And trees are never they always let light through. And so if you make them this big giant block, even far away you'll see bits of sky, atmosphere poking through, and it's a chance to really say something with the trees, and you can look at their character. Like a pine, for example, a pine tree, like a Christmas tree, clearly looks different from a palm tree. And if you can get their general shape correct, it doesn't have to be perfect, but you can use sky holes and you can do things like this and like really look at their edges. And if you can get their general shape correct, you will really add some dynamism to your paintings. And so I'm just even like coming in and roughing up the edges just a little bit to really, have this be more interesting. And this is where you can go off script and not necessarily follow the reference photo 100%. And you can make it your own thing. And it'll be far more interesting. And I'm actually going to come in and I'm going to change that. And for the purpose of this painting, I really don't think we have to have the house, because this is really about the sunset, not necessarily about it being my neighborhood at dark. So it's great because you can take this photo reference and with a little bit of fudging, we can make it look like, just this beautiful field somewhere in nature. And so there are a lot of great ways to use your artistic license and change a few things and make it. You can use what you have around you. Like we can't travel, we can't go places right now, we can't see things, but we can use what we have around us and make it our own and have it be beautiful. Like we can find a lot of beauty in just the everyday, if you open your eyes. So yeah, I think I'm gonna come through and I'm gonna lighten up some of the clouds. I think some of these blue clouds could use a little bit of some lighter tones. Let's see. This is where it gets fun, because I came through and things dry differently. So let's see if I just... And these clouds, you can in reality, they're a little bit more gray than what I made them. But as you can push and pull individual colors, and that's some of the places that you can really work on making it your own and making a statement rather than what's accurate or what nature really says. Like that's what makes art is we get to compose it, we get to decide how things go together, we get to tell the story. It's about us telling the story, and that's what makes it so beautiful. Ooh, that was brighter than I wanted. And every now and then we mess up a little, and it's okay. Because you'll learn and you'll get there and you'll learn how to save it. And actually, I was just working on this today. I was fixing a painting that I was not happy with. And so you learn to figure out ways to go back and fix it and change it. And sometimes you just start over. Sometimes you just keep working. It's really, as you go and as you evolve, you learn. As your skills get better, you go through and you really do learn different techniques. And most of it is just getting in there and breaking stuff. Like break it, mess it up, start over, try again. Like the only thing that will really ever truly handicap you is if you're afraid of failing. And if you can let go of that fear and just be willing to create and experiment, you are gonna just find so many things and you'll be so fulfilled. And if you can just learn to create for the joy of it, so now I'm just not even looking at the reference photo anymore. I'm just kind of going in and accentuating what I want to, and so yeah, I came in and I pushed it and I pulled it a little bit more, and now I think I'm pretty happy with the results. So if y'all have any questions, feel free to drop me a line. And also, I'm looking for somebody to send this to. So if you know somebody in isolation that can't be with friends and family right now, drop me a DM and I will mail this to them. And I think that's about it. Auctions are still going. If you want the reference photos or the materials that we're using and the swatches, feel free to visit my website. I have all the information there. And I hope you guys are having a great hump day. I am. I'm having a pretty good day, and this has been a pleasure as always. So thank y'all. I really appreciate it. Have a good night.